Happy Holy Hump Day on this July 20th, everyone. I'm Pastor Robert. Welcome to this midweek time where I can share some spiritual thoughts and reflections with you. This past Sunday, we began our 3-week sermon series on the theme Thanksgiving in July, and it's based on our New Testament appointed scripture readings for these 3 Sundays, July 17 through July 31, which is on the book of Colossians, a letter that Paul wrote. And that letter has 4 chapters in it, and there are several references to the importance of being thankful. So that's why we're calling this Thanksgiving in July. And it's also fun to celebrate Thanksgiving in the middle of the summer and not just in November. So I hope you're having fun beginning this series, learning about the book of Colossians as we grow in our faith together and what it means to be God's thankful people. And I also think it's important for us to have some background information. I know I shared some of that background information in my opening sermon of this series this past Sunday, but I also wanted to share some additional information. And I have this information from a Dr. Wave Nunnally, who is a professor emeritus of early Judaism and Christian origins. And I found this information helpful just for us to think about as we go through this series. And it's important for us to remember that when Paul wrote this letter of Colossians, that just like he wrote any of his letters in the New Testament, he was writing to a particular group of people at a particular time that had particular needs. You know, just like we would write a letter today, it's not usually a generic letter. It's written to address something in a particular way. And I think if we understand that information more, that can help us to understand it and apply it and receive it in a way that would help us to grow in our faith today. So I want to start out by saying that the Apostle Paul wrote 13 of the 27 New Testament books. Can you imagine that?
What did you say?
The Apostle Paul wrote almost half of our New Testament, so that is important for us to keep in mind. And in this list of his 13 letters that he wrote that we find in the New Testament, this is in the order of longest to shortest, Romans being the longest of his 13 letters. And you'll see that Colossians is in the middle of that list, so about in the middle in terms of length of all of the letters that he wrote. And I think it's also helpful to know there was a template in the first century where people followed that template when they would be writing letters. And the first part of that template is the greeting, where you offer an introduction, you address the recipients of your letter, as well as some well wishes and a prayer at the beginning. And then that would lead you into the body of the letter, where typically for Paul, he will share about what God has done for us through Jesus Christ. And he'll explain that theologically, often tying in the Old Testament with who Jesus is. And then Paul concludes with a very heartfelt farewell. So that's a typical template of Paul's letters that we find there in his letters in the New Testament. So I did talk about Colossae as a city in general, and let me just cover some information, some additional information than what I did Sunday morning. But here it is on the map, Colossae. It is, you see it's located there just on the right side of the middle portion of the map. And then you'll see on the far right, there's Tarsus circled because that's where the Apostle Paul is from. And I thought that would be helpful just so you can see that. And then Rome on the far left is circled because that is where Paul wrote the Colossians letter while he was in prison there. And he most likely died, I don't know, a few years after he would have written the Colossians letter. He died for his faith there in Rome. And Ephesus is circled because that is probably where Epaphras first met Paul during a missionary journey. And then Epaphras shared the good news of Jesus to the people in his home city of Colossae. And then that led to this new church forming. So Epaphras is the point person really for that church of Colossians. So what do we know of Colossae as a city? When it was an active city, it was known to be a very populous city, a very busy city. It was a very wealthy city because they were known for their purple wool. And they were also located along a major trade route, and that helped them in their commerce. So here's the interesting thing about Colossae. It was destroyed by an earthquake in 60 to 62 AD, somewhere in there, and it was never rebuilt. And here is a map of where the city was located. When you look at this terrain, if you notice that brown mound just beyond the first line of trees, that would have been the area where Colossae was located. And here also is a photo of some of the remains of Colossae. And also, I think it's important noting that Paul is writing to disciple the people of Colossae. He's also writing to encourage the people there in Colossae because they are a new church. And he's thankful for them in his prayers, which was the theme this past Sunday, Paul's prayer of thanksgiving for them, because he has seen how they have been so faithful, especially as a new church, a new community of faith in that pagan city, because there were so many influences in that city, and people would have really wondered about them as Christians. What kind of religion is this? So they had a lot of challenges trying to start this new church, and at this point they were being very faithful, and they're growing, and so Paul wants to encourage them, continue to encourage them, and thank them for their faithfulness as a new church. And so I do invite you to join us this upcoming Sunday for the middle part of our 3-week sermon series. It's going to be a Thanksgiving parade, and that's going to be based on Colossians chapter 2. And in Colossians chapter 2, we have a reference that's going to lead us into thinking about how our faith is meant to focus on the Jesus victory. And so there's some parade image in there, which I'll get to in the sermon this Sunday. So join us this Sunday as we continue to be God's thankful people. And may God be with us as we always seek to be thankful for the many blessings that we have in our lives, to be thankful not only in November, but also in the middle of the summer in July even. So may God bless you on this holy Hump Day.